Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on June 22nd, 2025 at approximately 9 p.m. PST. Now, I've made it my life journey to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. I build myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the exact same tools I personally use in my day-to-day life. And the philosophies of life I talk about are the same philosophies I use to guide virtually every decision I make by. With this in mind, I know these tools will work for you because they continue to work for me and have literally worked for thousands of other people over the years with varying degrees of success, depending on their own personal efforts. Now, before we get into it, hats off to Storm. He is our primary moderator, hiding in the background not too well, but he is the one that manages to make sure tech keeps working properly. And rest assured, with me in front of the computer, that can be a problem. Then we have Elling. He is also the one, by the way, that keeps the problem children out of here. This has to remain a safe area for everybody. And even the problem children, if you've created a problem in the past, and you're here behaving yourself, not creating a problem, you're welcome to stay. But the moment you step out of line, Storm will figure it out, and you will end up outside the chat room. You'll still be able to hear, but you won't be able to get in touch with me. At least not on the stream. Then we have L.A. Moon in the room itself. And she is the primary moderator that manages to keep the conversation going and adds all the extra little blurbs when things are stalling. She also, much more importantly to me, and quite frankly, I think to my fiance, L.A. Moon keeps an eye on my physical health. Now, with this in mind, coming through the door, where we go here, we have Eternity Eternal. You are in with the gold. How you doing? Glad you could join us. You know, it's always fun seeing who's coming through the door. And by the way, we are now up to 683 subscribers. So it is slowly edging its way up. I did the calculation based on 50 views after the fact. That puts us nearing 50,000 people that we're connecting with. Then we have Susan Ahern. You are in with the silver. Glad you could join us. You know, I know things are busy for you. They usually are. But I hope everything is going well. And we scroll down a little and we have Operation. You are in with the bronze. Glad you can make it. And yes, the journey is continuing. Neat part about it is as I get the clutter out of the way, things are starting to move faster. Okay, so as I literally told my fiance the other day, on the 11th of August of this year, I'm heading down to connect with my fiance down in Utah, but I'm turning around and coming back up here on the 18th. I'm coming back up here and bringing my wife with me. Now, and then I'll debate whether or not to send her home again, aside from to get stuff. You know, send her back again, because home becomes here. Now, today we're looking at black holes, wormholes, and tunnels through hyperspace. What's the difference? What's the purpose? Well, black holes are an interesting thing. Now, understanding I do not have a scientific background. I've never taken astrophysics. I've never taken astronomy aside from cursory astronomy in high school. I didn't study it. Okay, but I can tell you this. The theory is that a black hole draws everything into it and nothing comes out. This is a massive miscalculation. Okay. You know, the neat little part, when we take a look at it, stuff goes into the black hole, absolutely. Now, when it goes in, the gravitational stresses will disassemble everything. Okay, now if it's inorganic, it gets pulled through, shattered, just torn apart on a molecular level, and cast out the other side into the next rendition. Now, you've heard of the Big Bang Theory, I'm sure of it. As in, everything happened at the beginning of the universe, it just popped, and all of a sudden, here we were. Not quite the way it works, although I like the idea. Okay, but it goes in, it gets disassembled, and the component parts get fired out into the new rendition. This is what I learned to call the flip. Okay, and if you picture, this will work. Back in the 70s, this is actually from before. Back in the 70s, there was a little container that we had. It came along the same lines as the lava lamps. I'm sure some of you my age remember these things. But there was a little block, and it had a bar in the middle of it. And when you flipped it over, all the bubbles flowed back up. All the oil went back to the surface. Now, the way a black hole works, take the hole set this way. Okay, everything goes into the black hole, comes out the other side, and it's just like turning the bubble over. Okay, net result, we end up with reality rebuilding itself. Now, you'll notice I mentioned that it is the inorganics that get disassembled. Okay, which, yes, that means aside from a very, very tiny number of off-world species, the physical body will get destroyed. The consciousness, literally what makes the person, gets catapulted straight back out now back into the entrance side of the black hole. Okay, now from a visual standpoint, Rachel, how you doing? I do believe I think I made a mistake here. Operation, no, Rachel came in with honorable mention. Rachel goes, I still have a lava lamp. Yeah, I don't. I used to years and years and years ago, but where it went is anybody's guess. But when you take a look at the consciousness, and we'll get into that on another day. Okay, I got to figure out how to explain it properly, but your consciousness will get torn apart into its component parts, and you get to start all over again in this reality, in this dimension. You don't get popped into the 4th, 5th, 6th, 9th, and some genius came up and told me there were 900 dimensions. I'm like, yeah, and I like the smell of glue too. But, when you take a look at it, the consciousness of virtually every species, now I will tell you, the Zerzics are one of the few corporeal species that hold themselves together, and we will use the term corporeal a little loosely here, that can travel through a wormhole, through a black hole, and pop up on the other side in the new rendition. But you got to remember, the Zerzics are the ones that handle the Akashic records. Okay, so this is now, if you take a look at it from a visual standpoint, picture a wormhole or picture a whirlpool. Okay, where all the energy is swirling around and being pulled into the black hole. Now, what happens? How does the consciousness get back out? Well, now you take that black hole, and in the middle of it, you take that whirlpool, in the middle of it, dead center, you get a geyser. Just a little tiny one, okay? And scientists, if I recall correctly, about 15 years ago, actually got a photo of this stuff coming through. Not knowing what it was, but there was something kicking back. Okay, so your consciousness will survive. Okay, but the black hole disassembles everything. The gravitational pulls, you really don't want to try that. And yes, there are some of you out there that are kind of like a Kender. Well, I haven't done that before. I think it'd be neat. Might be neat, but it's also fatal. So that's where the black hole comes in. And by the way, we are not talking about just one black hole in the area. Okay, there are black holes scattered throughout the cosmos because you're not looking. Take a look at the colander. Okay, the idea of the lava lamp. Okay, I forget what the thing was called, but of that little block. Okay, think of a colander. Pour the water into it in a real hurry. Okay, and you will fill the colander with water, but then it'll come through the holes. Okay, this is the same way that the so-called Big Bang happens. It is an ongoing cycle of life. It also, by the way, is one of the biggest reasons why we have past life overviews, where you may remember one thing. Okay, you may remember being one person, that isn't necessarily human, and still think that right now that's where you are. And we will get to that on another day. Okay, which reminds me, I really have to start doing this. Whoop. Where is my list? This thing works like an absolute charm, I'll tell you. That's the list I keep talking about. But that essentially is what a black hole does. Not from a scientific standpoint. Sorry, guys, you're going to have to look into the scientific side yourself. Uh-oh. Ellie goes, me too, Rachel. Mine gets strange when I get near it. Aw. I've got a friend who has the same effect on the lightning lamps. I forget what they were called. He walks by them and they reach out to try and touch him. It's great. But that's what your black hole is doing. And no, braving the idea of going into a black hole, just to experience it, this is a fatal idea. However, we did find out something. Okay, about a decade ago, I was asked to help with a problem. Okay, there is a way out of a black hole, but only if you act awfully quick, and you better have a powerful ship. Okay, because they'll tell you without a ship, you're hooped. First of all, what are you doing out in outer space without a spaceship? This is not a good travel time. But we found, much like in a whirlpool on Earth, okay, if you go around the outside the perimeter and keep working your way up, you got to get to a real decent speed before you can break the gravitational pull, and because you counterbalance it with the spin. Okay, once you do that, you can break out of it. There are a number of Strazazian soldiers that are rather still to this day going, we survived. But it takes a certain amount of, shall we say, creative thinking. But black holes, do not kid yourself, they are fatal. Okay, with almost every single species available. And rest assured, I'm talking every species in the third dimension. Same problem happens in the other dimensions, but you as a third dimensional won't get to experience it for a while. Now, here's the neat thing. There is a piece of technology. I really have to track down the rest I've got to track down the rest of the notes for it. But there is a power generator, or more to the point, a battery charger that is built on the ejection from the black hole. And that one I'm definitely going to have to get into the books. I do not know the name of it offhand. Here we go. Whoop. That annoyed me. Just making a note to make sure I get things done. Okay, now, That's your black hole. And again, guys, if you've got a question, absolutely pop it into the chat room. Okay, but put it all in all caps so I can find the thing. Okay, black holes are a wonderful thing. They're great for recycling, not so fun for navigating. And by the way, bad news, they look similar to other phenomenon. Okay, now let's take a look at the wormholes. Okay, a wormhole is an existing tunnel through space. There are two locations for them. Okay, one location is both ends are in outer space. Okay, outside of gravity wells. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But a wormhole is something that the advanced races can spot and navigate. Picture, if you will, spotting a tunnel in the side of the mountain and being able to go through it. Okay, I'm talking with a car. If you know where the entrance is and you can track the tunnel, you can do it. Now, the advanced races, okay, most of them know how a wormhole works, but they are a natural phenomenon. Now, the ones in outer space, they don't have a gravitational draw. Okay, they are simply a hole in this point that pops out over here. Okay, and they're simply joined in the middle. Now, if you watch the show, no, we'll get to that. Wormholes themselves are a natural occurrence. Okay, it's just like looking at a mountain. Cass, how you doing? Glad you could join us. I do hope your day is going well. You know, when you look at a wormhole, it is a natural occurring a naturally occurring hole in space. And bear in mind, we are talking in space, not in time. Okay, so before anybody comes up with this idea of, oh, I'll grab a wormhole and I'll go back in time and see what I was up to. You're not doing that. Okay, you do not have the option of traveling back in time. Now, granted, you go into a black hole and you are, in one sense, going back in time because your entire soul will get torn apart and spit back into this dimension. Okay. But when we take a look at the actual wormhole, you can navigate them. Anybody that's got a spaceship that can pick them up can navigate them. Flubber, how we doing? Glad you could join us. You know, so the wormholes are great. You can utilize them. Doesn't matter who you are. You don't require any sort of special licensing. There's no requirement for special ships, etc. Okay, except the technology to spot the wormhole in the first place, and then you better have a decent pilot. Now, the wormholes, they do not run into each other. Okay, this is one of the reasons that you don't worry about them. Okay, a wormhole, by the way, unlike holes in caverns on Earth, okay, wormholes will not run into each other. They will loop around each other, but they won't break the barriers. Now, then we get into that other thing, and it's just the cursory side of it. Okay, when we look at the tunnel through hyperspace, those are technologically generated. Okay, and that means that you've got species that can literally, they've got a ship, they want to cut time. They go, okay, we'll create a hole here which will cut through all of the physical stuff in the third dimension. It'll cut straight through planet, stars, ships, the whole 9 yards. anything of a solid nature, or a hyperspace tunnel, will go right through it and not leave a mark. Okay. Now, I made a mistake, so I'm going to take a half step back here. The other type of wormhole, didn't make a mistake, just overshot. The other type of wormhole are terrestrial wormholes. Now, the good news is that a terrestrial wormhole, meaning on Earth, they do not jump from one planet to the other. So, how about if we don't dig out the glue bottle? Okay, wormholes on Earth can account for a number of missing people. Lots of recorded history, recorded incidents where somebody, let's say, and I'll just say somebody in Illinois is walking along, minding their own business, doing whatever they will, but they're just out for a walk. And all of a sudden they find themselves in downtown London, England, without a passport, without a ticket, without anything except what they had on them. This is the fundamental impact of a terrestrial wormhole. Now, I had witnesses when I was traveling between Kelowna, which is where I live, and Vancouver, okay, major city on the coast, about 300 miles, 350 miles away. Okay, with witnesses, I would end up on traveling from Kelowna. I'd end up getting lost in my own head because of the weather, and I'd show up in Vancouver an hour early and about 70 miles shy of what I should have had on my odometer with witnesses. Operation is asking, are the terrestrial wormholes a natural phenomenon? The answer is yes, they are, just like the tunnels through the mountain ranges. Okay, those are natural phenomenon. What they are for is to make sure that the excess energy has a way to bleed off. Now, I will tell you, I do know of a few of the terrestrial wormholes that do travel from our surface to what you call inner Earth or hollow Earth. Okay, now, this is one of those neat little things that facilitates the nice little disappearing of the Weclonicon, what you know as the Sasquatch. Okay, these guys know where they are, and they just naturally are able to utilize them. Net result, you can track a Sasquatch wherever you will, okay, and they'll get to a certain point, and all of a sudden they're gone. This is why they seem to vanish. Ultimately, they are. But when we're looking at the tunnels through hyperspace, you're looking at a technological thing. Oh, heavens, yeah. Cass, I absolutely have. Cass goes, hey, Keith, off topic, but have you heard of Bigfoot manifesting through trees? Yes, also known as a natural wormhole. Okay, they do have that capacity. Okay, and if you're going to ask how to track them down, good luck with that one. Okay, when I've done it very much by accident, usually because I've been really concentrating on not killing myself on a bad road. But with the terrestrial wormholes, they are a naturally occurring phenomenon. They were literally put there to bleed off excess energy and to cool things down in the atmosphere on Earth. Because in case you hadn't noticed, it gets a little testy up here on occasion. Okay, but they are just as natural as normal wormholes, or more to the point, tunnels in the mountains. Okay, or as I've seen in some trees, I've even seen a natural tunnel grow. Now, when we take a look at your tunnels through hyperspace, hyperspace is you literally are changing them in the superstructure, the field around the ship. This is a technological maneuver, okay, because you increase the vibratory rate and you can pass through a solid object. Now, I believe, and Storm, if you'd be kind enough to just verify, I believe it was that phasing into the hyperspace realm that literally caused the backfire on the Philadelphia experiment when they brought the ship out of sync, but they forgot to account for the water. So of course, when they brought everything out of sync, all of a sudden you end up with all these soldiers, all these Navy personnel stuck in bulkheads. Most of them died. Can't picture why.
No, that is correct.
I appreciate that, there,
Yeah,
Storm.
they didn't the take into calculation into consideration for pre-existing physical mass in the location, and that's where
Hey,
the problem happened.
yeah, that would do it. Because let's face it, you shift the density of the matter you're standing on, and you're only miss it for a moment, but the body drops, or the ship moves sideways. All of a sudden, we got a problem. And the answer to that neat little question, why wasn't this disclosed? Well, can you picture the chaos if the scientists had actually released that? Okay, there are some times when I do agree keeping things in quiet might be an idea. Okay, there's a lot of times when I figure people should actually button their lip and not say anything. But sadly, and I'm a bad one for it, okay, but when we're talking about your tunnels in hyperspace, that is a technologically generated phase continuum. Okay, it's a conduit, and they will travel through spots. Now, here's the neat part about it. Okay, now there are pretty much LA. LA goes, an ocean is constantly moving. They never considered it. You know, and, it was sad to say it was an oversight. A rather fatal oversight, but it was an oversight. But then again, Einstein tried explaining the theory of relativity, and the scientists of the day couldn't figure that one out either, and it was pretty black and white, which we'll get into that on another day. But with a tunnel through hyperspace, okay, with a tunnel through hyperspace, it's generated. Now, as you can well imagine, okay, as you can well imagine, virtually no society is devoid of criminals. The consortium has the same problem, and many of these criminals have technology to create a hyperspace tunnel. Now, this is a great way of getting out. The drawback with a hyperspace tunnel, it doesn't close right behind you. Okay, there is only, and I forget which one it is offhand, but there is a race that can do that, but they don't actually create a tunnel. They create a hyperspace bubble, and the bubble itself moves through the cosmos. Net result, you can't follow it. Okay, because the whole bubble is traveling along. Picture, if you will, this going through the cosmos, and as it passes through, the world closes behind it. The fabric closes behind it. Okay, now with that in mind, when you take a look at the other technology that actually creates a stable hyperspace tunnel, they go in, and we're talking about the criminals, the ones that are actually breaking consortium law. We're going to get away from these guys, so we're going to create a tunnel. But if they don't get enough distance ahead, what'll happen is the literal enforcers of the consortium, okay, the space patrol, if you will follow them into the hyperspace tunnel. Now, here's the difference between Terran officers, and for pity's sakes, people. And I know I shouldn't have to tell people this, and people that need to hear this are going to ignore it anyway. Okay, when the police come up and they fire up their lights, okay, it might be an idea to pull over. Now, Terran police will force you to stop, and then most of the time, assuming things go reasonably well, they'll arrest you, certainly. The Galactic Consortium has a different idea. If you're in a hyperspace tunnel, okay, the consortium patrol have this really neat capacity. They will hit your ship with a destabilizer, which will kick you out of hyperspace now. Now remember that neat little problem of what happens when you put two physical forms in the same space. Okay, it happened on the Philadelphia experiment. It happens regularly when the constabulary go after a runner. Okay, pop them out of the hyperspace wherever they are, which there's no telling where you are. You got to remember, you're in something that's got no functionally trackable path. Okay, you get popped outside. If you're lucky, you show up in a sun. Now, showing up in a star or a sun, well, let's face it, you're not feeling a whole lot. Like, instantly, because it will not make much of an impact. Okay, won't cause any kind of functional damage to the superstructure of the planet. Any more than a pinprick will make your arm fall off. Okay, but the hyperspace tunnels are a manufactured and always changing. They are personal changing. Now, the neat part is, with the hyperspace technology, you can have two hyperspace tunnels cross each other, but they are just enough out of sync that you'll go right through the other ship. Now, the neat part is this can happen on Earth. I know of a couple of cases where somebody was driving along and you just knew that you were going to get hit. Your car is going one direction, another car goes right by you, or more to the point, right through your car. Okay, I know of a few people that had this happen. Blue, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Oh, there you go. Now, the nice part about it with a hyperspace tunnel is you generate the thing, you can go through physical objects. But if you get popped out, if you get forced out of the tunnel, where you come out is likely to be fatal, but not always. Okay, I have seen it where they got popped out of the hyperspace tunnel in front of an oncoming comet. If you think stepping into traffic in front of an oncoming semi is bad, try a ship being popped in front of a comet. This doesn't end well for the people. Doesn't end well for the ship either, by the way. Now, this same hyperspace technology has been weaponized. And guess what that means? Okay, now the neat part there is somebody sent me a picture of an artifact that they had gotten handed down, what they called a download for. And they put this thing together to ask me if I had any idea what it was. Right, because they fired it up, they couldn't get any readings off it. And I told the guy to send it to me. I said, and I gave him the name, and I forget offhand what it is. It is in my book behind me. But I told him what it is, but what it was part and parcel of a much bigger piece of technology. Okay, hyperspace technology has definite uses, both positive and negative. It is up to the individual how you're going to deal with it. It really is up to the individual whether or not you're going to use whatever tech you've got for good or bad. Okay, now this is one of the reasons why I look at the stuff the technology I'm looking at, going, okay, can it be used for damaging? Certainly, but is it designed for damage? No, in most cases it really isn't. Problem with many young species, and especially the infantile ones, is the first thing they do is go, how can we make a weapon to defend ourselves? And then they do the stupid thing. Okay, this will defend us. Like you take a look at something as simple as a spear. Okay, designed to start with as a defensive mechanism. I'll tell you why I call it that. They started by simply grabbing a stick and poking it aggressively at an animal that was coming at them. It wasn't until civilization progressed that they started deciding that, hey, this means we're better than they are and we can take something. Okay, doesn't go well. I'll have to wait for that to come up. One of the neat parts about it is that when we look at hyperspace technology, it can be used, yes, it can be used to try and outrun the law. It can also be used to turn around, okay, and be used to get wounded people to another location. Or, as I found out when I saw this piece of tech that I was shown, it's also part of a communication device for not cross galaxy, but cross universe. Okay, because it opens up a doorway. In D&D terms, they call it a dimension door. Okay, I missed that, and why it doesn't always come through. Let's pop that over here momentarily. Oh, that's what that was. Okay, and we'll put that back where it was. What I'm doing is I've got two monitors here, and I can't read on the little monitor. So I have to move it on to the big one. This is why I'm always looking over here. Clement, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Now again, guys, if you've got a question, absolutely pop it into the chat room in all caps so I can see the thing. In case you hadn't noticed, these are kind of indicative of my eyes don't work as well as I'd like. Fortunately, they have improved to the point that now I require them to work on the computer and a drive, but I don't wear them much at all to walk around the house. Okay, very seldom do I use them for that. But when we start looking at these three different types, black holes never ever go near. Okay, they're absolutely a bad idea. And yes, I know there are those of you that are scientifically minded. And by the way, I know for an absolute certainty that this channel is being listened to. The reason I know this is because where do you think I keep getting all the information of the different races from? Tell me. The neat part is, just to put the communication technology in perspective. Okay, here we have a cell phone. Okay, now a cell phone has a obvious benefit to it. You can call your friends. You can use it to phone for emergency backup, that sort of thing. However, there are a lot of geniuses out there that are going, oh, look, it's a cell phone. We can use it to scam people. Remember that karmic law that says energy out, energy in? Think about it. You know, I saw one on YouTube the other day. It was priceless. This father walks into his daughter's room. Nothing wrong, okay, but the daughter's screaming. So dad says, "Give me the phone book." And of course, daughter calms down a little and goes, "Dad, you are such a dinosaur." "Samuel, how you doing? Glad you could join us." She goes, "You don't need a phone book anymore. You know, just look it up on the cell." So she hands him the cell phone, right? And the next frame, he goes, "Well, the spider's dead, the cell phone is broken, and my daughter is ticked." You know, yes, people my age are a bit of a dinosaur. Cowie, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Where are we? Any missing anything here? So, of course, this is the difference between being stuck in the past, okay, and realizing that there are things from the past that are kind of necessary. Hyperspace tunnels are useful as all get out, okay, but they can absolutely be put to negative use. Now, I'm not going to give your twisted minds any extra ideas, okay. I figure you guys can come up with all kinds of twisted ideas, especially when you start realizing that there are a number of people in this room, in this chat room, that are gamers, which means we look at the world differently. Okay, black holes, not a good transportation loop. And if somebody tells you they've been through a black hole, that's when you look at them and ask them if they'd like a shovel or a backhoe. Okay, because I'm telling you, I've seen the outcome of going through a black hole. Okay, there are only two species I can think of right offhand that can get through it. The true spirit, in other words, your soul. Okay, you know, your soul, what makes you you, what makes every sentient individual them, can travel through a black hole. Okay, and yes, you'll take your memory with you, but the human brain, the corporeal brain, does not hold all the information succinctly. That's where the Akashic records come in. Okay, but black hole, bad idea. Wormhole, you may hit it by accident. You may hit a wormhole by accident. They're a naturally occurring construct. Okay, it's simply kind of like, the reason we call them wormholes is because they look like a worm goes through and cuts the path. Oddly enough, that's not entirely off kilter. But we will get to that, as a matter of fact, come to think of it. Not that, this. See, I go talking, this is why I write things down, because all of a sudden I get this image. Those wormholes, yes, they're naturally occurring. Okay, some occur because it's just a crack in the fabric of space. Others are created by things. And we'll just have to work on that later. Now, what came in here? You know, the nice part about it is when we take a look at the whole concept of interspatial travel. Okay, wormholes are a great thing you can utilize if you spot them, put them to use. But understand, you go through a wormhole without knowing what you're doing. First thing you gotta realize is it's kind of like a bobsled run. Okay, now in the old video games, there were accelerator pads that you would play, and I know some of you people my age anyway would remember those. Okay, where there's a little spot on the track that just gives you that hyper boost. Okay, in the wormholes, kind of the same idea, but it's caused more by a gravitational flux than anything else. This is why you got to pay attention to what you're doing. Hyperspace tunnels are created by technological maneuvering. Samuel goes, we can do almost anything except duplicate a soul. Well, in a manner of speaking, but you are essentially correct. You can replicate one, and that literally boils down to this. And this is where death after death comes in. The corporeal soul, the thing that makes you you, is a merged entity. Okay, and there are species and situations, the black hole being one of them, that if you get caught in it, your soul will be separated into its component parts. Now you got to start all over again from wherever you are, because it may not pull you all the way down from a soul standpoint, but you lose parts of yourself. Now you got to go find those parts again. And we get back to that neat little thing called soulmates, soul family, twin flames, all of those. Okay. Now, the neat little part about it is when we look at hyperspace, at the tunnels through hyperspace, they are a construct. They are a technological advancement. Well, that was absolutely terribly pronounced. I can live with it. Okay, so with this in mind, guys, just like you see roads on terrestrial land, wormholes are a tunnel network through space. Okay, and they will travel very nicely. They don't link in with each other because the second you break into one, it causes all kinds of problems, and that's a very long and complicated problem or discussion rather. But wormholes are naturally existing. Holes through hyperspace, you got to remember, a tunnel in hyperspace is a physical form. Okay. What do we got? It is a physical construct, and therefore, when one hyperspace tunnel hits another hyperspace tunnel, they both automatically adjust outside. Yeah, that could be, yeah, very much the case, LA. How you doing, Whoa? Glad you could join us. The neat part about it is these are technological advancements that mankind will eventually get to. Okay, it's kind of a neat little setup because mankind, they're not, you guys are not as advanced as you'd like to be. But I have heard of situations, for instance, about 40 years ago, mankind isolated a molecule of antimatter. Great idea. Held it in place for a moment or two, and then blew half the building up. Okay, and I happened to get that. No, I'm not giving you names. I got it from a very well-connected individual. That the building that was blown up, it was chalked up to being a gas main that went. Problem: when it detonated, it just vaporized a chunk of the building. And of course, then the building collapsed on itself. Because let's face it, you take a tower, right, and cut a hole in it that cuts halfway through the tower. Okay, all of a sudden you got missing space here. This is what's called shades of Lemuria. And what have we got here? Cowie, good news for you. The radiation from a wormhole won't damage anybody. Okay, it really doesn't. Does it have a different radionic fingerprint? The answer is yes. But is it such that it damages other things? No. Okay, it doesn't damage other things any more than a tunnel through a mountain damages the people walking through it. And where are we here? One of the biggest things we got to remember is mankind talks about all these things that are going to kill you. I like this one. The radiation from your phone is going to cause brain cancer. I'm not quite certain how. But I do know this. If cell phone radiation was going to do that, you would end up with a lot more dead people with brain cancer. There wasn't any significant rise that I ever heard of based on technological advancement. What have we got here? Best of luck with that, Callie. I've been traveling around for years. Okay. And I've yet to spot them until, like I told my dad, I would know about them once I was inside. Oh, okay. I appreciate that there, LA. Looks like we're going a little further until such time as Storm gets back. Otherwise, we sit here and look at each other. And I don't know about you, but that's a scary thought from my end. But, yeah, Samuel, you are correct. I have heard of people, I've talked to people that literally would be walking in the States somewhere and show up in Australia. Okay? There have been people that have been found frozen to death in the Arctic. Ah, Renee, I did not see you come in. I am glad to see you. Hopefully your day has been going well. The thing is, when you look on Earth, all throughout history, there are recordings. As a matter of fact, some of what they're now finding, that the archaeologists are finding, okay, some of what the archaeologists are finding are animals that, quite frankly, shouldn't have been where they were found. And the only viable explanation is that they showed up there and couldn't compensate. So now what's happening is you got people that are turning around. We've got people that are turning around, showing up. We talk about illegal aliens coming across borders. These guys end up in the middle of a country they don't even know the language to, going, but I didn't go, I didn't come through customs. I want to go home. Well, where's your ID? How am I supposed to know? I didn't, I went for a walk this morning in the garden. And here they are standing in the middle of downtown London. Okay. Now, much of this gets chalked up to just hearsay or somebody like the, what people call the rags. Okay. The sensationalist newspapers or the websites show people, here's what we've got now. Oh, Willard, how are we doing? Willard is asking, I'm sorry, can I ask a question? Is there a mega god-like computer that runs the matrix of this? The short answer, the really short answer, Willard, is no. Okay. There is, and number one, the movie The Matrix was a brilliant movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Okay. Now, that said, okay, I will grant you this one, and no, I'm not, rest assured, Willard. If you listen to any of the spiritual teachings, God is in everyone. You're made in the image of God. Therefore, you've got that capacity. Okay, But as such, you also have the responsibility to treat it properly. Okay? And we're not going down the dimensional road. You're here, it's third dimension. That's where it ends. Now, the neat part about this is when we start looking at hyperspace tunnels, because somebody's going to come up with this, because I just did. Hyperspace tunnels cannot jump from third dimension to fourth dimension to 12th dimension. They just can't get there. You can't even get back to the hub with a hyperspace tunnel. It cannot be done. And there are safeguards to avoid that. They tend to implode. By the way, if you're inside a hyperspace tunnel and it implodes, kind of a bad setup. Okay. Now, the reality is, I am not one to tell people what you believe. Okay, understand something very important. Okay, that's a Christian Bible, the Gideon Bible to be exact. Well, to be approximate. I've got about a month left, I'll be finished this. Then I'll start reading the Book of Mormon. Now, that being said, okay, what you've been told, what you call things, that's up to you. Hyperspace tunnels are a great method of transportation. Uh-oh, what do we got here? Oh, there we go. Yeah. Oh, we are down to the last couple of minutes. Well, I'm gonna go through this routine, and then we'll see. But I really want to say thank you so very much for sharing your time with us tonight. Really appreciate it. Okay. Let me see here. Tomorrow we are going to be dealing with, what is tomorrow? Monday. Tomorrow we are going to be dealing with how to earn money with a credit card. And that's earn money. Okay. And I'm going to post these on Facebook tonight, just so I don't have to go through it too much. But with that in mind, I really do want to say thank you so very much for sharing your time with us tonight. Really appreciate it. And we will be back again tomorrow. Thank you so much for that, LA. We will be back together again tomorrow. But until then, do take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.